Well, I'm saying go now. So here we are. We're at Mom's place, April 20th, 2014. And we just want to start asking Grandma questions about her life, history, everything else. So we can share it with everybody else on the family and everything else that's going on. Kay and I are here. And we just got through having dinner. We had ham, sweet potato, vegetables, and the Wingate Secret Family Mustard Sauce, which was provided by Kelly this year.
Yes, very good.
Yeah, we brought just a little bit of it with us, and we enjoyed our ham with it. So it was great. Kind of just a loose format, but let's just see where it goes from here. Mom, why don't we just go through a little bit of your history? Grandma and Grandpa's, my grandma and Grandpa's, your parents' names and where they were originally from. Let's start with Grandma.
Grandma Kempenaar, Grandma McCabe.
Grandma McCabe.
All right. She was born and raised in Montana, and my dad, Grandpa McCabe, was raised in Washington, the state of Washington, around Pendleton and so forth. So
Really?
he became a radio announcer of KFBB in Great Falls, and that's where he met my mom. And she thought he was pretty cocky. And,
We have a picture of Grandpa McCabe on our wall. In fact, you know what? While she continues talking, this is a picture of Grandma's, my grandma's family
in Lewistown, Montana. I'm the little girl that's sitting on Grandpa's lap, that little white dress. And the photographer would say, "Look at the birdie, look at the birdie," and I could see the yellow bird, and so I watched the bird.
Okay, from left to right is Uncle AJ, Aunt Pearl, Grandma, Grandpa Kempenaar, and his name was
John.
Andy. You weren't named after him. We didn't find that out till later. Behind him is my grandfather, Les McCabe. Then that's Aunt Maureen, isn't it? Who's next?
Maureen is in between Grandma and Grandpa.
Right. She's between Grandma and Grandpa. And Grandma's name was? Great-Grandma.
Ellen Elizabeth.
Then behind her is our grandma, which was?
Jenny May.
Jenny May. Okay, I have to go over, which one was next, Mom?
I think Aunt Ethelda was. I'm not looking.
The Aunt Ethelda is on the very end.
That's Aunt Clara that's at the very end.
Oh, okay.
In the middle.
Okay, then this is Aunt Ethelda.
Aunt Ethelda, and then Aunt Clara.
Aunt Clara. So that was Grandma's family, along with Les McCabe. That worked out real well.
It did. My dad was quite a popular guy. He was really he was a handsome man. And he really had a very good time of it with all my family. But I was looking through my book that I have received from Todd, and there's the very first story that I wrote in here was, what was your favorite pastime as a child? Did you prefer doing it alone or with someone else? And so then I wrote, it seems I played school with my sister more often during the summer. Baseball after school on the school playground with a gang of boys and girls or roller skating around school during recess. They had a sidewalk all the way around the whole block. Nancy Drew Mysteries and Cherry Ames' Nurse series were favorite books. I enjoyed Paper Dolls and especially the Baby series. In the fall, friends would come over and we would create leaf houses with rakes, and we would take the leaves and make doors and beds and sofas and in fixing a living room. We had many hours of it to our use, our imagination to creative. I also liked being alone to think of the future. My mind goes back to Boise, Idaho, at our home, 1717 North 13th Street, in the summer of, now let's see, I gotta find my, okay, summer. I would like to be on the lawn and watch the clouds drift by. I would imagine seeing animals or creatures or people. It was fantasy characters. Riding bikes was also a fun time. We would meet at a friend's house and just take off. All of my playmates lived in the north side of the town, very close to the foothills. It didn't take us long to get out of town, but most of all, I was always content to be the teacher, even if I wasn't too good at it, but it was a beginning.
That's excellent. You know what? Just for everybody else, how do you spell your name, and how did you get that name? I know that I think that was one of the first things in the book, wasn't it, Mom?
Let's see if it is. Yes. Who gave you your name and why? And did you have a nickname? And how did you get it? You want me to read this?
You can just tell us.
Just tell it?
Just tell it.
Well, my dad was, as I said, a radio announcer for KFBB there in Great Falls. And Mother was part of the bookkeeping department. Now, there's two stories I love to tell, and one was how they went for their honeymoon. Well, they had to tell Jake, which was a female, that they wanted to have a 3-day honeymoon, and she said, no, you can't have that. You have to be there, Les, for the Saturday night barn dance, because every radio station during that time of the 30s had an auditorium. And when they had the Saturday night barn dance, all the guys that were part of the staff dressed up in cowboy outfits, and the girls wore their long dresses that were popular there at that time.
What city was this in?
In Great Falls.
Okay.
And the announcer would come on with the Saturday night barn dance. Well, Mom and Dad didn't have much of a honeymoon. I think they had only one day and one night. And they had to be back at KFBB to have the Saturday night barn dance. So when he got back and was talking to the staff, they said, well, Les, we've got a special song we want you to sing for this one. And of course Dad said, sure, I'll be more than happy to do that. So when he got up to sing it, it was, I Wish I Were Single Again. Ooh. Ooh. And we have laughed over that
Oh.
for so many years because that was what, and he sang it and he did a good job with it too. Well then, during that time of having the auditorium, they had an organist that would come, and her name was Eileen, and she spelled it A-I-L-E-E-N. And when she was there was standing room only when she was there at the auditorium. And Mom and Dad gotten to know her very, very much, so they enjoyed her. And when they found out that I was a little girl, they wanted to use part of her name. And so they took A-I-L-O and then made capital R-A-E because my dad wanted a Ray. And Mother said, no, it has to be Rachel. And so that never showed up as Rachel, it was always Ray. Ailorae then was my name.
With no middle name.
With no middle name. And in my second grade at school, my teacher tried to use Ray because it started with a capital R-A-E. She wanted to have it as my second name. And I said, no, that's not, that's part of my first name. Oh, no, it isn't. That is your middle name. And I said, no, it isn't. I'm sorry, but that is part of my first name. No, it isn't, and we're going to put it down in your records. Well, I went home very unhappy, told my mother what was going on, and Mom then wrote the teacher. I have a feeling that it was a blistering letter.
Because Grandma could be that way.
Yes, she could. She could really state it very well. And so she would, the teacher then came to my desk and said, Ailorae, I am so sorry that I made such a mistake with your name. I will change it and make it right. So your first name is Ailorae? And I said, yes, ma'am. So that ended that. But as I went through school, everyone tried to pronounce the A. And it was Allegory or Ailorae or whatever. And finally in 11th grade, I had an English teacher. And she said, this is your first day with me, and I know that your names are important to you, so I want you to correct me if I'm not pronouncing it right. So she went through everybody's name, and when she got to me, she said, Ailorae. And I said, Ailorae, Mrs. Bassford, and I'm here. Well, every day, Ailorae. And she did this, and I corrected her for 3 weeks. The third Friday, I said, oh, phooey on this, I'm just going to answer yes. And so when she came to my name, Ailorae, why then I said present. And my girlfriends were so mad at her that they took my canvas 3-ring notebook binder and wrote Ray on it, and they said, that is what your name is going to be. We are not fooling around with Ailo anymore. So then when some of the kids would call for me down the hall, they would start with Ailorae, and they'd say, that's not her name is Ray, and you call her that. So when I went home that night, I said, Mom, I have a new name. And she said, you do? And I said, yes, I do. And she said, well, what is it? And I said, Ray. And she said, what? And she said, how come? And then I told her the story of my 11th grade teacher, Ailorae. For a whole year, she called me that. And so that, for me, was a real change. So I went by Ray and have gone by Ray. The only time I ever use Ailorae is that's my legal name when I need to make legal papers and things like
Kay
that.
understands that. Catherine Ann.
Catherine Ann. I don't respond to it. Yeah. If it's Catherine Ann, I'm at the dentist, the doctors, or they found what I wrote. I'm in trouble.
I have had only one other person that that called me, and she called me properly. Ailorae, and I said, "You did it. You called my name properly." And she said, "Yes, ma'am. I've been working on phonics." And so when you have two vowels together, I guess at the beginning, the first vowel
Silent?
is silent, and then you pick it up from the second letter, I, because my name would
Then
be.
why isn't it Ailorae?
I have no idea. I have no idea.
You know what? I think that's all we're going to do. We got 16 minutes, and I think that's enough for everybody to watch for a thing on YouTube.
Okay,
We'll do another one of these in a little bit.
good. Bye-bye, everybody.
Happy Easter.
Happy Easter.
Yes, happy Easter.